All right, happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome. Uh, I'm going to let Camilla do the introductions, the official introductions, but I'll just do the housekeeping here, which is, everybody comes on muted, and if you can just keep it that way, unless you want to speak up and ask a question, that just makes it easier and cleaner for everybody to hear. And also, if you have any questions along the way, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we will keep an eye on that, and then kind of address those as we get towards the end of the presentation. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Camilla.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Camille. Today, we're joined by a really special guest. She's put together a wonderful presentation about heroes in our school. So we've got Lorna Mcgrath here, who is a senior consultant and director of family resources at the Montessori Foundation. She also serves as an associate head of Newgate School. She has over 41 years of experience in the field of education, teaching children from 18 months through 6 years old, and from 12 through 18 years in both public schools and independent Montessori schools. She received her master's degree in education with a concentration in family counseling from the University of Georgia and her Montessori certification from the American Montessori Society. We're really lucky to have her here sharing a bit of her time with us. And we hope that everyone kind of takes away some positives from her presentation. We know that these town halls are kind of set up to help Montessori leaders discuss with one another and learn from one another. So hopefully that is the case here. I'm going to pass it over to Lorna so she could share her presentation with us. So I'm passing it over to you now, Lorna.
Thanks, Camilla, and thanks, Camille. I'm so glad to be here with all of you this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with fellow administrators, even though I'm not one anymore. I was for a very long time. And this is a time in our lives that is very different for us as administrators, for the faculty and staff at your schools, and for your whole school community. It's a time, I think, when we need to be even more aware and conscious about supporting our folks that are working with us in the schools, our teachers, our office staff, our maintenance people, everybody who puts that school together for the children during this time is really a hero. You all are heroes because you are putting really your lives on the line in a way when you go into those classrooms and when you are with those students. And so you do it every day. You go to school every day and try to do the best for the children that you can. In the meantime, because you are administrators and heads of school and maybe owners of schools, you also have to look after the needs of your staff, your faculty and your staff. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I have a lot of ideas for you, but I know that you have even more. So please feel free to share and to ask questions and to give your ideas about certain things so that we can have a really interactive afternoon session. So I'm going to go to the first slide. Maybe. Yes, I am. So supporting your school staff. Why do we do that? Well, one reason is we want to support our school staff to confirm their value, to let them know that we see their value and we acknowledge their value and confirm that with them so that they will feel uplifted and appreciated. And speaking of appreciated, we also want to support our staff to appreciate their efforts. And again, particularly at this time in our history, they are making amazing efforts to keep our schools Montessori and yet be able to serve children either virtually or in person or virtually and in person. And so they've had to put an awful lot of effort into what they do because it's different than what they were trained to do. We want to support our staff to recognize their potential, to really look at who they are and what they're capable of, and recognizing that for them. We want to encourage new possibilities for them. And so we want to support them in whatever new possibilities they're thinking of for themselves, and also maybe whatever possibilities we have for them in our schools. So those are some of the reasons why we want to support our school staff. But now I want to ask you all a question. Oops, let me do it. There we go. I want you to think for a moment about what comes to your mind when you think about supporting your staff. So I just talked about the why we support them. I'd like you to think for a moment about what comes to mind when you think of, well, what are the things that maybe you could do to support your staff? And I want to just give you a quiet moment to think about that. And then you can either talk to me, because luckily we're on Zoom. I'm used to go to webinar and we can't talk to each other. We just type things in. So, or you can put it in the was it the chat section? Yes. Put it in the chat section and they'll let me know. So let me just be quiet for a moment and let you think and compose your ideas. Take another few seconds. I always think I should be singing or humming the theme song from one of the game shows on TV when I'm doing this moment. It can seem like a long moment when you're just sitting watching. All right. So would anyone like to share what comes to your mind when you think about supporting your staff?
I think of letting them know how much you appreciate them, whether it's with a short note, a little note. In the old days, you could pat them on the back and say you're doing a really great job.
Yeah.
But somehow to let them know that they are appreciated.
Absolutely. So a personal note or even something else. Yes. Anybody else have what comes to your mind when you think about supporting your staff? We're gonna go on with our slides and our presentation here. And if you do think of something, just go ahead and write it in and we'll take a look at what you had to say. So let me.
Lorna, we do have a few in the chat here.
Oh, good. Do you want to
read
share
them.
those?
Sure. We have provide opportunities for growth through professional development. And Wally has said, reach out to them individually and ask them how they are feeling and issues they are facing.
Yeah.
I suggested ask them what they need from you. And then Mary Lou said, meet with them one-on-one throughout the year.
Absolutely.
And then Sayana also said, keep up to date on their families. They are your school family. Give them opportunities to share their expertise with the group, even in other non-educational topics.
Okay, absolutely. Well, those are all really good ideas, and some of them are very similar to what I've put into the slideshow, but I broke it down into two categories. One is this one that you see on your screen now. I broke it down into personally or professionally. And so these are just some things that I thought of, and maybe you'll add a few to it. If I can get it to go, we'll see. Oh, there we go. Okay, wait, back. As far as personally supporting staff, sometimes it's nice to just give them something that's more personal, that's not, doesn't have to do with their classroom or their job or the feedback. It's just for them. And we have done things like we've had a massage therapist come into our school, and they have a special chair. Some of you may have experienced this, that they bring along with them, and it's called a chair massage. And so basically they're getting a shoulders and neck massage. And it's just been a really nice thing. People could sign up for it during the day and do it while they were at school. And it's usually about 10 minutes long, maybe 15. Sometimes you'll have somebody in the school community who is a massage therapist and would be happy to donate their services to the teachers and the staff of the school. So it's a nice personal kind of thing to do. And I'm not sure why, okay, here we go. Another personal thing that you can do for your faculty or your staff is gift cards. And probably all of you have thought about this, maybe even done this. Particularly during this past year, it's been hard to get to stores and other things. And gift cards are wonderful. Sometimes, depending on the person's circumstances, they want something like a Target one, where, it's a one-stop shopping kind of thing. It's a department store, it's a grocery store, it's a this and a that, and they can choose what kinds of things that they want. And so gift cards are always a nice addition. Sometimes over the years, I've put little things in their mailboxes. They have all their mailboxes in a row, and it might be a flower that I just stick in their mailbox, and each person gets a little flower, or it might be a chocolate that I put in their mailbox. And so it just kind of says to them, I'm thinking about you, I appreciate you, that kind of thing. Here's one that a lot of my teachers over the years, and I was an associate head and an interim head of school for 25 years, I think, of my career. And so over the years, one of the things that I heard a lot is, it's really nice when I get to see you first thing in the morning and you give me a smile and say hello, and maybe just a brief little, how are you doing today kind of thing. So a morning greeting for each person that is in your faculty or your staff. Here's another one that people really seem to enjoy and appreciate, and that is personal day opportunities, so that they didn't have to take a sick day, or they didn't have to have a legal thing like they needed to be on jury duty, but it was just a day that they could just take and just take off. We'd cover them with a substitute, and they could do whatever they needed to do. We used to call it mental health days, but I kind of don't like that name so much. So, but it was a day to refresh and renew and relax, hopefully for them. And then this one is similar to one of our people that talked, shared her response, and that's a personal note from sometimes not necessarily the administrator of the school, but the owner or a board member or the president of the board, depending on how the school is set up. Just a personal note saying, I've heard really good things about your teaching or your classroom, or I went to a festival and saw what your kids were doing, or, that kind of a thing really makes a big difference. And they don't, often faculty and staff don't hear from owners or board members very often. In fact, they pretty much don't know what owners and board members do, or who they are. And so if you have that kind of a situation at your school, it's nice to give those notes to the teachers and staff. So I shouldn't go on yet. Does anyone have other things that they've thought about that they either have done or are thinking about doing in terms of a personal appreciation or support kind of thing? All right, let's just go to professional, and we'll see what's on my list of professional. Notice the photo there, or the photo, employee spotlight. And so this is really more about their professional life. And again, one of the things that I heard so often during the years that I was the administrator of Newgate School is, we really would like it if you visit our classroom regularly. And they wanted me and, if there was someone else, to really be in their classrooms and not just do a walkthrough. They wanted us to sit down and spend a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes on a regular basis. Now, depending on the size of your school, you may not be able to do that as often if you have a larger school and many classrooms, but you also may be able to have different people. If you have a level leader, like early childhood level, maybe that person can go and visit them. But you know what? They really want the person who's in charge of the school to be the one that's going into their classroom and just seeing what's going on and offering some feedback later on after their visit. So that's an important one. And often we get busy in our offices and forget that we should be spending some time in the classrooms, and because the teachers really appreciate that. Another thing, offer opportunities for continuing education. Along the way, I had different people come through the school. Some came in as assistants, some came in as aides, and some came in as qualified teachers, certified qualified teachers. But they were interested in continuing their education, and our school really wanted to support that. We talk about having lifelong learners, the children be lifelong learners. And so it's important for the adults in the school to feel like they are lifelong learners and can participate in that as well. So allowing them to take teacher training, Montessori teacher training, allowing them to finish a degree if they are working on a degree, even sometimes helping them out financially with those things. We had a program where we did that, and they agreed to work for us for a certain number of years after they finished, so that they didn't ever have to really put out any money, but they committed to being loyal to the school and being with us for a number of years. This is another one that it depends on the financial status of your school. During this COVID thing, many schools lost enrollment, or they had to actually make their classes smaller and have more adults in them. So a lot of the money that they usually had from tuitions wasn't going as far. But during good years, during good times, financial years, giving bonuses for extra responsibilities. So maybe you've got a teacher who takes on, I don't know, directing the children's opera. That might be one. Then giving them a small bonus or a stipend of some sort because they've taken on this extra responsibility that is not necessarily part of their regular school day responsibilities. Spotlighting different people from your school community in newsletters. If your school does a school newsletter, just spotlighting from time to time different people on your faculty and staff, what they do, who they are, all of that is really kind of a nice boost for some people. Encouraging growth is similar to continuing education. I think of continuing education more as finishing a degree or going for certification. Encouraging growth could be in many different areas and in many different ways for them to have personal growth. And so that's another one that we want to support them in. And then providing resources or workshops. So just as you're going to a town hall for administrators, it's nice sometimes for schools to be able to provide someone to come to your school, either by Zoom or in person, and provide resources or workshops on topics that are of interest to your faculty and your staff. Other ideas? Okay. we will go to the next one. Sometimes it's important to provide social opportunities for your faculty and staff. And I'm going to actually go back, and I'm just going to leave that word socially there. I was an administrator that really encouraged my faculty and staff to not socialize with parents. And the reason for that is if they became social with parents, it gets a little sticky sometimes if there's an issue, either with the child or with a school policy or something like that. So I encouraged my teachers and staff not to be social with parents. Well, if you're not social with parents and those are the main adults in your life, then who are you going to be social with? So sometimes it's important for faculty and staff to be social with each other because they do share a lot in common, and they can develop real friendships and real relationships with the other people who also work at the school. So here are some ways that you can have social opportunities for faculty and staff. One, you could have a book club, and it could either be a book club for sort of recreational reading, novels and things like that, or it could be a book club that actually was more about their professional stuff. I know at Newgate, we read some of Montessori's books and other things together as a group, and did a book club that way. And then get together once a month, once a week, however, every other week, to talk about what you've read together and your ideas about it and that sort of thing. Another way is just to have a social gathering. We used to, during the winter holidays, get together as a group and have dinner and just chat and have fun and sort of party together. There's a different kind of social gathering that would be called maybe a recognition luncheon or dinner. And that would be, in some places they do a teacher appreciation week. I think that's maybe all over the country. And the parents and the administration will chip in and do some kind of a luncheon or a dinner for all of the faculty and staff so that they can come together and feel appreciated. And as these folks are doing, you could do some sort of a recreational outing. It might just be on the playground of your school and you can have tug of war like these guys. Or maybe it's more of a retreat kind of a thing where you actually go somewhere and do, I don't know, ropes courses or, some of those leadership trainings and those sort of things. But it's much more of a physical type of activity than the other kinds. Whoops, I didn't ask. Anybody have any other social type of activities they want to add to the list?
Mary Lou said a movie club in the chat.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's a great idea, a movie club. You could do a movie club and then read the book together, and so you could combine the two. Some people like to go to the movie first and then read the book, and other people like to read the book first and then go to the movie. So either one of those would be great, or just plain movie club would be so much fun for people just to get together. And, in this time when we're trying to be so careful about the COVID and all, you could do that kind of thing on Zoom, of course. It's much more fun in person, but everybody could pop their popcorn and have a movie night together. So I think that's a great idea. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else have any other ideas?
Jill also said we did a Zoom quiz, like a pub quiz with our staff, which that sounds really fun as well.
Talk to me about what a pub quiz is.
It's like a series of just trivia. It's like a trivia night.
Okay. Trivia.
Yeah, with you can do it via Zoom or in person, of course. Normally it would be like at a pub or a restaurant or bar that you would play together, but you could also do it via Zoom.
I like it. All right. Okay. This one is an important one. I really liked this quote a lot. We have to remember with our teams of people that we work with, that the strength of the team is each individual member, and the strength of each member is the team. So it goes both ways. And as we think about that, we have to remember that they are individuals and one size does not fit all. So not everybody wants to do a ropes course. And not everybody wants to do a movie night. So we're going to have to do different things throughout the year. And we're also going to use our observation skills with these adults that we work with and really take a look at who are they, what re-energizes them, what do they love. In other words, we have to know the people that we work with. And so when we think about one size does not fit all, and we think of them as individuals, remember there are different personality types. And that for some personalities, the thing that really makes them happy and feel appreciated is a little gift in their mailbox. For other personalities, it's a pat on the back. For other personality types, it's having the opportunity to be a leader at a faculty meeting. So it depends on the type of personality and the person who it is. And, you know, we're always talking in Montessori about observing the children, meeting the needs of the children. Well, adults have needs too. And we as administrators are the ones that need to be observing the adults and thinking about, well, what are their needs and what would really match up with them. We also want to think about their life situation. You know, when we say the strength of the team is in each individual member, what are their life situations? You know, what are they going through? Now, we may not know everyone's life situation. They may not want us to know their life situation, but we will know some of them, and we will know about them and their needs if we know a little bit more about them personally. And sometimes they will tell us. Sometimes there'll be a health situation that's going on either in their life or in one of their family members' lives, or there'll be, you know, a separation that's going on in their personal life. And so they're going to need different things and different types of support from us, depending on what's going on in their own lives outside of their workplace. It also depends on what their goals and desires are. I remember I had a really great friend when I first started teaching in Montessori so many years ago. She was the best assistant I could ever think of having. I was an intern and she wasn't my assistant, but she was an assistant in the classroom. And she was great. And people kept saying to her, you should go for your Montessori training. You know, you are definitely a Montessori teacher. You just, you know, need to know a little bit more and have that certificate and be a lead teacher. And you know what she always said? She always said, you know what? I'm really happy being an assistant. I love what I do. I love being with the children. I don't want to be a lead teacher. I don't want to have that responsibility. I want to be able to come in and enjoy what I'm doing and not have to think about record keeping and progress reports and dealing with parents who may not be as happy with the situation as they might be. And I just love being an assistant teacher. And so we need to understand that not everybody wants to be a lead teacher. Not everybody has the same goals and desires that we do, and you know, honor that. I'm sure there are other factors in people's lives that really we need to take a look at and see them as a real unique individual that we can address and can promote and support. Does anybody have any thoughts about that one? Nothing in the chat room right now. Okay, so we are going to go here. You know, during this time, I occasionally will get in my car and go riding around since I'm at home all the time. And my office is at home now, of course, and I would go by this one place, and there was a sign out in front of this. It was actually an assisted living place. And there was a sign that was in the lawn, one of those lawn signs, and it said, "Heroes work here." And I thought, what if everybody that had a school put a sign like that out in front of their school? Because the people that are holding your schools together, that are doing the work, that are putting their lives on the line, they really are heroes. And that might just really make people feel really, really good. And it would be a nice, easy thing to do. If you wanted to, you could have signs made up of something like, "Heroes work at my child's school." And the parents could put them up in front of their homes in their neighborhoods, and maybe have the school name down at the bottom. It would be good for two reasons. It would be good for acknowledging all that the teachers do, and it would be good for people seeing the school name out there in places where maybe they don't know your school. So, and certainly on your sign in front of your school, you'd want your school name, but you probably have a sign of your own in front of the school. And as we think about heroes work here, I want to sort of leave you with a thought. Encourage connection and support. That's what we all need right now. And in the places where you are in your schools, I'm assuming, and this is a big assumption right now, I'm assuming that your classes are face-to-face, that they're live and in person. It may not be true of all schools. Some may be doing sort of a hybrid kind of a situation. Some may be doing a lot more virtual school, but I'm assuming that most of you are doing live. We have to see what this next year will bring. I just got a text I live in Florida, and I just got a text from my son, whose child is in Montessori school, and they live in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia has just said, okay, we've got mandatory masks again. So, we have to go with the flow, and we have to do the best that we can. But if you encourage connection and support among the people that are working in your school, they will have that group and that community to really hold on to and to find strength from. And so I wanted to show you this picture. Some of you may have seen this before, but I learned this in a class years and years ago. It was probably a team building type of workshop that I went to. And they said there are two different kinds of groups. One is what we call a working group, and the other is what we call a team. In a working group, there's a community of people who are working together, and there's a goal. And so in the middle of this circle where it says working group, that star represents the goal of the organization, goal or goals. And each person, those arrows are people. Each person knows what those goals are, knows what that organization, that school wants to accomplish, knows what you want to accomplish in your classroom, which may be different than the classroom next to you, or may be different if you're at a different level. Early childhood might want to accomplish one thing, and elementary might want to accomplish another. But everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing and where they're heading, and the mission of the school and all of that. And everybody works toward that goal. And that's a great model. It gets the goal accomplished, and it's a wonderful thing. But notice the second circle. That's called a team. And the reason that it's called a team is because not only does everybody know what the goal is still right there in the middle, the star. Not everybody knows that goal, but also, and they're working toward that goal, but they're also connecting with each other. It's sort of a web of life kind of thing, where because they're working together, talking together, thinking together, working toward the goals together. So the early childhood and the elementary teachers are talking to each other about, how do we know when a child is ready to move up? What are the characteristics, this and that? They're all working toward that central goal. And yet they're working better because they're working together, because they're sharing ideas, they're sharing support when support is needed. They're sharing all those things that make it more of a team. And so when I talk about encouraging connection and support, I'm really talking about a team model rather than a working group model, because that's going to make your school much more solid. And you could even add into that, if you wanted, some of the parents, some of the board members. They're all working toward the same thing. We all want the best for the children at our schools, and we're all working toward that same goal. And so that's going to be an important model for you to think about as you go through the year. One of the things that I find is that sometimes in our schools, we're really good with children and we're not as great with the adults in our lives. We sometimes hold this idea that adults they're grown-ups, they're mature, they don't need the support that children do. They should be able to do things, without that. Or we're not particularly sometimes as honest because we're afraid of conflict, we're afraid of different kinds of things. And in a team, people are honest with each other, they're open with each other, they listen to each other, they respect each other's ideas, and that's going to be really important for your school as a whole, and particularly in times of real stress and other kinds of things. So that's my thought for today. Those are my thoughts for today. I don't know if we want to open it up for questions now or comments. Again, we have a quiet group. I don't know if I'm making them quiet or if it's just today.
I'd like to share something if I can.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because I would love to see all of you. And when I have my screen on, I can only see some of you at a time. So I'm gonna stop sharing. There we go. Thank you, Kathleen.
You're very welcome. One of the things I've tried to do is give each teacher an opportunity to observe the other teachers in the school. Now we have a small school, 5 classrooms, but even with that, to get the teachers and the assistants in each class to be able to go see the other 4 classrooms is tricky.
It is.
And I have to commit to it for like a month practically because I'm the one that goes into SUP. But what it does is the elementary teacher says to the primary, oh my God, I could never do that. You have to be so patient. How do you walk so slow and talk so softly? And then it goes the other way, too. And it really puts the teachers in each other's shoes, which minimizes, I hope, the criticism among the teachers if they think a teacher isn't doing, what they should be doing. They see what it is. The other thing with staff meetings for appreciation, I always started the staff meeting with a check-in to see how everyone is in that moment of time. Yeah. And they don't have to share personally if they don't want to, but they can just say pass. But again, it helps build community because there was a situation in one school I was in where there was a young mother trying to get 3 children out the door in the morning. She was a primary teacher. She was often a few minutes late. The elementary teacher, who had no children, no other responsibilities, but just getting to the classroom on time, couldn't I don't know why she's always late. Why don't you do something about it? But when she told what life was like, leaving her house in the morning, and then the baby needed a diaper change. She had to have a diaper change. So it delayed her by a few minutes. Then they began to cover for each other. Yeah. I don't mean cover deceitfully. I mean, well, I'll go into her class and help out until she can get there, So all that builds community too. And it's easier in a smaller school to do those kinds of things, but they could be done on some level. you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing those ideas. Those are wonderful ideas and wonderful things to do. You know, it really does help so much for teachers to go into other teachers' rooms. That's a huge one. Sometimes we get, we get to be like a little island in our classrooms. Here we are in our classroom doing our thing with our assistant or our co-teacher and our children and our parents, and the whole rest of the school is sort of out there somewhere. And, there's that old expression, no man is an island, no woman is an island, nobody is an island. Um, and so it really helps to bring us out into our own communities and to recognize and appreciate what's going on. I love that. Thank you, Kathleen. Anybody else have any thoughts?
We do have a question from Jill that she asked earlier on about she mentions we're struggling financially due to the pandemic, enrollment is down. So are there any ideas for staff appreciation that don't cost as much money or don't cost money at all?
Sure. Some of the things that I did mention are free or very little cost. For example, having a fun day, almost like a field day, on the school playground. You don't have to go pay a lot of money to do a team build kind of thing. You can do it right there on your own. Some of the things like the provide workshops and professional development. We always think, oh, that's going to cost money because there's people out there that, are educational consultants and they'll charge us lots of money. Well, not everybody charges lots of money, or you may have some really great people in your school community, your parent community, who have expertise in other kinds of things. Let's say like an occupational therapist or a speech therapist. And maybe your teachers are interested in those kinds of things. And maybe that parent will come in and do a workshop on a professional day for you for no charge at all. So there are opportunities for doing things in a low budget way. And maybe some of the others of you have some ideas about that. I always found our parents were very generous with their time, with pitching in. Like when I said give them gift certificates, you know what? We did that, but the parents actually chipped in and they came from the whole school. So it didn't come out of our school budget. It came from, other people, other sources. Sometimes board members will do that kind of thing. So does anybody else have other ideas for things that you can do that are not going to cost the school a lot of money? Because I know that during this time, the money situation has been tight for many schools. Some schools have even had to close because of the COVID thing. So anybody else have any other ideas?
Well, a lot of the ones that were mentioned, like movie club or pub quizzes, those can all be free kind of bonding activities that you can do with your staff. I also remember our speaker, was it, I think 2 weeks ago, Lisa thought that she had some great ideas for staff relationships. And I think the recording is up on Thrive for anyone who's interested in watching. But she had some great kind of ideas on how you can check in on your staff, how you can talk to them, communicate, and build a better relationship as well. So definitely kind of just looking at different ideas there, but there's some great ones in the chat. This one might cost a bit of money, but we did a Zoom spa day in my women's group. The supplies were delivered to everyone's homes and we just kind of did a chat. That sounds like a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing that. Also, Lorna, I have a question, just speaking from a community standpoint, because I know one of the biggest issues right now with many of our leaders is either like finding trained Montessori guides or kind of keeping a hold of them, because it seemed after this year, any that were kind of clinging on kind of tended to walk away because it was such a stressful year. Yeah. So, how can these activities kind of encourage maybe more Montessorians to stay in the school community or attract new talent into your school community as well? Because that seems to be quite a big issue.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, if you're doing these kinds of things and you're really, really paying attention to the individual people that are in your faculty and staff, they're going to feel more bonded to your school. And there are some people that during this time, they just felt for health reasons, they just couldn't keep going. I have a good friend who was an intern, and I was a field consultant for them. She taught for 1 year, and then COVID came, and she has 2 little children at home, and she just really felt like she couldn't stay in the classroom for health reasons. She didn't want to bring anything home to her own family and to her own children. Now, of course, that was before vaccines as well, but still, there are people who have health situations of their own that they feel like they can't be in the classroom during this time. So, that's a difficult one. I think that yeah, go ahead. There's a nice lady there, and she has her hand up. Oh, it's Mary Lou.
Hi, Lorna. I want
Hi.
to begin by saying thank you, because I think your topic is really timely. I am hearing as a consultant on this, I don't know what you're hearing, but hearing and seeing and talking to people who are saying things to me like, I'm going to give it 1 more year. I
Yeah.
don't think I can do much more.
Yeah.
And that's a little scary. If I don't know what you're hearing, Camilla, but if this is sort of out there in the thinking right now, that's a little scary to my way of thinking, because first of all, it's hard to get good Montessori teachers, right? And there is a crisis going on in terms of getting highly trained and experienced elementary teachers, for sure. And it goes on and on. So I think anything that we can do to recognize that we are at a critical time in our world, and there's been a lot of unrest around it. We know all about that. But I think what we need to continue to do, and what I always try to do at faculty meetings and so on, was to always start with the mission and our vision.
Yeah.
And which we of course wrote together, and that included the board. But I never went into a board meeting without actually reading something from Maria Montessori. So when you ask what can we do, I think we have to in small ways. And this doesn't cost anything, right? It's really bringing them back to why they chose this profession. It's what led them here, and how that, without saying, how can I keep you? It's let us all work towards our common, as you say, as a team, Lorna, work towards that center of that is the child. So what are we all going to do? And I think that's going to need reminders, and everything you've said, Lorna, is going to be needed. We need everything. Because I think we have people who have burnt out along with the administrators. So they've got to be cared for too, which means a lot of self-care. So that's
Absolutely.
on my mind.
Yeah. I thank you very much. All of that is really good stuff. I appreciate it. Wonderful. So good to be with folks. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
I just want to go off of what Mary Lou mentioned, because I have been hearing very similar comments being made in the community. I think it seems to be the consensus that everyone is kind of reaching this state of burnout, and that word has been thrown around quite a bit this past year for good reason. So when it comes to like staff appreciation, what are some great ways to address, burnout, that it exists and that people are experiencing it, and that, as a school, the community can support you through this and kind of move past that state of burnout?
Yeah, I think that, obviously, when we talk about community, it's all about relationships. And so we really have to make the time to build relationships among our people who work at our schools. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing. and it's something that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. You know, there's so much work to do. There's so many things we have to do. Oh, now we have COVID. Oh, now we have to do virtual stuff. But if we say, this is important to take care of ourselves, and we carve out, whether it's once a week, whether it's once every other week or once a month, where the whole faculty gets together and just has a time to talk. Or in other cases, some people don't do well in a larger group, or, you know, or even a small group. So as administrators, if we can carve out the time to spend a little bit of time, I would say each week, with each faculty member, depending on the size of the school, of course. If you've got 500 kids in your school, you're probably not going to be able to do that every week, but, you know, and just sit and listen. Sometimes it's just important to sit and listen. And because people are just feeling like there's so much on their shoulders that they need to be able to sort of unburden themselves. They don't necessarily want you solving their problems for them. They just want somebody to really listen and pay attention. So I think that's a really important factor when we talk about supporting people.
One thing I did that you might, when you asked that question, Camilla, it's such a good one. I don't know, this is pre-COVID, but you know, we were going through a period of, maybe it was just a group of parents who were highly anxious. And so I asked one of my parents at the school, who was a yoga teacher, if she'd be willing to run a yoga class prior to the, you know, every day. She did it just, you know, the teachers were meant to be there half an hour before. She was there, and 15 minutes before that, it was a short segment.
Yeah.
They could, you know, come do all that they needed to do at home, which is a lot, but get to school and start their day with a little yoga. And then she continued to do it with children, and parents paid her for that. So the yoga was a good thing. For our very wiggly boys and girls, we also started a walking exercise in the morning. Now that's maybe not as easy in the these days, but it was amazing because some children really need to get their wiggles out, and very often it was identified. It would come up and say, this boy is doing those. It seemed to be more boys than girls. I was the girl that was wiggly, so I think it includes girls, but we simply set up a walking group and a little running group. And so we went onto the playground and did 10 minutes of laps. And then we ended meditation, which brought them down, and then they entered. So I think there are things like that, you know, we have to get creative about.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right, Mary Lou. I think that, you know, just as we sometimes get so focused on the materials and the lessons in the classroom, and we forget that really I was an early childhood teacher. So the biggest thing, the most important thing is really not the math materials and the sensorial materials, but it's all about helping children be in a community and know each other. And I think if we take that same principle and say to ourselves, you know, that's going to be really important to our faculty and staff during this time, is that whole idea of thinking of ways that we can really build relationship with each other. And that's an extremely important part of our day, of our jobs. And the yoga idea, I forgot about that, man. We used to do that too. We had a faculty member that did it for a while. And then later on, we had a parent that came in and would do yoga with the teachers and the staff. So, and it was free and it was voluntary and people loved it. You know, it was just so easy to relax and not only get your mind calm, but get your body calm. Anybody else? Yeah.
A few years ago, we went to, one of the teachers started it, and of course, it wasn't in the album, so God. But
not everything is.
She found her children had a better morning if when they came, they went to the playground, and then they came in and had and started their morning. So it took 20 minutes from the work session, but the work session was much more productive because they did that. So now the whole school does it. Not elementary, but the primary and the young children's community are dropped off. And we subdivided our playground so more children could be out during COVID with fences.
Right.
But it's working very well.
Beautiful. Love that.
Not quite the same as yoga, but yoga's good.
Lorna, can you hear me?
Yes. Is this Sean?
Exactly. Hi, so good to
Hi.
see you. The last time I saw you, we were driving in traffic. I looked over on I-75 and there you were, and we were waving and waving to each other. That's been a few years ago. Anyway.
That was probably a few years ago. Oh my gosh. Sean did training at Newgate School how many? 20 years ago? Ooh.
20 years ago, but I remember it as if it was yesterday. It was just a beautiful experience. I wanted to go back to your what you were talking about when you have people on staff who see themselves in one role and don't want to take a step forward in growing or going to the next level, and just don't see themselves in another vision with another picture. How do you encourage people? And, this is Montessori, so we're very supportive of each other. We will scaffold each other. So how do you deal with that with staff who just don't want to move?
Well, that's a really good question. And I have probably at least two answers for that. Probably there's more. One is, the first thing, I always want to really try to look at that person and say to myself, are they not wanting to move on because they don't have the confidence in themselves or the motivation to move further in a career? Or are they just actually really happy with where they are? Because I have always believed, you can't force people. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Is that right? And so I don't want to impinge on somebody else's space in a way. I don't want to force people to do things that they don't want to do. Like I got to give you a good one. If somebody comes to me, and people have over the many years that I've been an administrator and been in schools, and said, it's time for me to go. That's what I need to do now. I worked with someone who would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk to that person and try to talk them into staying. And I'm going to tell you, more times than not, when people are talked into doing something, it doesn't last. It doesn't work. So I want to be really careful to really evaluate in my own mind and really listen to the person that's talking to me and that I'm talking to, and say, is this really that they're just not confident and I need to help them get over that, or they're not motivated, I need to help them get over that? Or is it they really are happy? The woman that I talked about, she really loves, she's still an assistant and she loves it. And you know that she loves it every day when she comes into work, So
Right.
that's my answer.
Okay, I'll try to be a good listener so I can tell the difference between. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Lorna today? It's just hit 1 hour, so just checking in to see if anyone has any last questions. Don't want to keep you here longer.
May I add just one thing?
Of course.
It won't be an infomercial, but it'll be a commercial. I didn't put this in my bio, but I just finished writing a book with a colleague and friend of mine, Tim Selden, and it's coming out this month, and it's called Montessori for Every Family. And I mention it because I think one of the other things that we need to be really aware of during this time and COVID time is making real connections with families and keeping them in our schools and helping them to understand Montessori better and to use it in their home lives and so forth. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank
Nice.
you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sounds lovely. Tim Selden has spoken at our town halls before, correct, Camille? This was a while back, and he's also incredible. So I can
He is.
imagine it would be a great read.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to everyone who came, and thank you, Lorna, for sharing this presentation. I think, like Mary Lou said, it's just so timely, especially getting into the mindset of appreciation for this new coming academic year. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're very welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. So good to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.